Hello and welcome to In the Classroom, an educational podcast making teaching and learning more transparent. My name is Benjamin Stewart, and here I would like to share with you a recent broadcast I did talking about task-based learning, talking a little bit about a class that I'm planning on teaching next semester, the spring 2020 semester. And just so you know, there are a couple of breaks in the audio. Unfortunately, in fact, I'm still experimenting with some of the technologies that I'm going to be using to produce the broadcast, to produce this podcast. In this particular case, I was using Get Vocal, and with Get Vocal, you can simulcast and push out your audio in real time. And in this case, I pushed it out to Periscope, YouTube, and Facebook. And I noticed that these breaks occurred across the board, basically in all of the three social networks that I used. Unfortunately, there were certain breaks that happened. So it seems to have occurred within Get Vocal. So still experimenting, but I wanted to share with you this particular audio, and also invite you to share your own experiences with task-based learning. If you are currently using task-based learning, especially in language learning, which is my own context, I would really like to hear from you and know what challenges you're facing, what successes you've had with task-based learning. You can reach me at Twitter. My Twitter handle is BNLEEZ. Now, let's get on with the broadcast. Okay, this is In the Classroom. My name is Benjamin Stewart, to make learning more transparent. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. Today's topic will be discussing task-based learning. Let me turn down my volume here. And so today's topic is task-based learning. I want to talk about a recent article I came across, share a couple of ideas that I've been thinking about as we start the new year, start a new semester next month. Today's December 20th, 2019, and want to make sure we've got everything up and running here. Looks like we're broadcasting live via Periscope. So if anything that we talk about today is something that interests you and you want to share some of your ideas, if you're following or viewing this video in Periscope, feel free to follow me on Twitter at BNLEEZ. That's my Twitter handle, BNLEEZ. Feel free to share any of your ideas or reach me via Twitter if that is your social media of choice. I'm also broadcasting in Facebook. We have a Facebook page, In the Classroom. You can find that at facebook.com/In the Classrooms with an S at the end. That should take you directly to the page where you can also view this video. Also, I am pushing this out to YouTube. So if you're watching this in my YouTube channel, feel free to subscribe. And again, leave any comments below this video regarding any of the topics here that we're discussing today. Today, we're about task-based learning, and want to share with you a recent article I came across. And I think getting started here, and I'm going to share with you too some of the technologies I'll be using next semester. But I came across this article, Task-Based Language Teaching, what every EFL teacher should do. And there are a couple of things I want to share with you today as we begin talking and thinking about implementing, as far as my classroom is concerned, thinking about applying a task-based approach to a course called Grammar and Context 2. This is a second semester course for English language learners who are also preparing to be English language teachers or trainers. This is a one-year program. It's made up of Grammar and Context 1 and 2. This is the second semester. But the idea of this next semester is to adapt a task-based approach to the learning of grammar. And so the idea here is to set up a Microsoft Teams. All of the students who are enrolled into the program are also or they have access to Office 365, which entitles them to also access Microsoft Teams. So we'll be using Teams to look at or to host different posts, different files that will be shared across the whole course and with all of the students who are taking this particular course. And this also includes OneNote, which will be where most of the course content can be found. All right, so in this particular case, we have set up here, let me open this up. Under Content Library, for each of the 16 weeks, different concepts that will be our main focus for that particular week. The first week, for example, courage will be our topic, and within each of these weeks, we'll have different understandings. We'll also have a problem that we'll be looking at as an essential question. A lot of this information is coming from Understanding by Designs, Wiggins and McTighe's book, published in 2005, looking at different understandings. And one essential question that will be really the through line, or the main idea that we'll be discussing and considering for the entire week. So again, the idea here is to base each of these concepts under these different concepts, understandings, essential questions. We'll have a language focus, of course, and different links that they can access for additional information. So generally, looking at this article, I think this is a good place to begin thinking about what task-based language learning is, and what to really think about if you are thinking about this as an approach for your particular teaching practice. And so the first thing I want to do here is first share my screen, because let's see here. All right, so now you should be able to see my screen. This is the article that I'm talking about, task-based language teaching, what every EFL teacher should do. And I just realized I was speaking about Microsoft Teams and I wasn't sharing my screen. So basically, this is what I was discussing here a few minutes ago. And I'll come back to this towards the end to cover what I just discussed, so you can also take a look at that. The first thing I want to take a look at, though, in this article, and let me open this up here. Yeah, so the first thing that they talk about in this article, I think, is looking at task-based language learning from both a pre-task preparation as well as a task performance. You could also obviously think of it as a post-task feedback as well, but looking at it from three different perspectives, like what priming or primer activities will students need to maybe introduce new vocabulary or grammatical structures, then the tasks themselves that will take them through a series of performances that will lead to maybe post types of activities where they're able to reflect on the experience, on the performance, on the language, on the content itself. And really looking at it from these three different perspectives, I think is something to consider when you're looking at different task-based activities or a task-based approach. In this article, they also talk about task-based learning, and basically taking it as both a learning approach and a teaching approach. And they compare this to maybe a more traditional approach of presentation, practice, and performance, and this being a good alternative to that. But they list basically 7 different characteristics of task-based learning that they feel is favorable, or aspects that really emphasize task-based approach over the traditional approach. The first one being instructed language learning should mainly contain natural or naturalistic language use, and the activities are related to meaning rather than language. So here you've got the idea of how much should be focused on, or how much of the performances should be focused more on meaning versus form. And different authors have different perspectives as to the role or the emphasis of form, or how much form should be part of the language learning experience. And you can look at it as how much should you focus on form in the pre activities versus how much should there be a focus on form during the actual tasks themselves versus how much of a focus maybe at the end or post activities where maybe they're reflecting. And this is going to be, I think, very much dependent on your teaching approach. And I know me, in my particular case, I'm going to be looking at each individual week, looking at the problem under investigation, looking at the understandings that we're trying to develop and really explore for that particular week. And I think that the focus on form, I'm going to be keeping it open as to how much will be at the pre versus post versus maybe during the activity itself, how much or how we'll end up focusing on that. But meaning definitely is going to be at the forefront. Focus on meaning, on the purpose of the language, is going to really, I think, performance test for each particular. All right, so this is something to consider when you're looking at test-based teaching and learning in your own particular practice. How much focus, or how are you going to focus on the form, the grammatical forms, and when that will occur, how that will occur, how much will that be part of the learning experience versus a focus on meaning? Now, that they mentioned here, instruction should support learner-centeredness rather than teacher-centeredness. I think this is fairly obvious, and I think if anyone is really serious about adapting a test-based teaching approach, that this is going to be inherent, I think, in the experience. But I think also that when you're looking at helping students through the tasks, how much of these tasks are going to be dictated by you, the teacher, the instructor, versus how many of these tasks will students actually have the freedom to decide for themselves and be able to actually decide on and choose for themselves the best types of tasks to be completed, and even maybe to the degree that they choose whether they work individually, whether they work in small pair and small teams, or maybe pair work. And so a lot of the decisions about interactional patterns and maybe even line versus the tests themselves. Another decision are already predetermined, or will this just emerge from the educative experience? The next point, because totally naturalistic learning does not normally give rise to target-like accuracy, engagement is essential to promote the internalization of formal linguistic elements while keeping the perceived benefits of the natural approach. So the natural approach is mentioned here. Engagement is essential. I think some of this can be, well, how should I say this? It's going to depend very much on what one thinks about when we define engagement and also natural approach, especially when we're talking about formal education. So if we're within some sort of formal educational experience where there's a school curriculum, there's a syllabus to be adhered to, a lot of the maybe course objectives have already been established. So a lot of decisions will be needing to, or one will need to make with regard to the engagement, like how much engagement are they going to take part in, not so much maybe in the classroom itself, but maybe external to the classroom experience. How open or transparent will the educative experience be in terms of decisions about with whom they can interact with? Or will it only be within the classroom? Students will just interact within the classroom itself. When I think about engagement, I also have to think about effectiveness and efficiency. So effectiveness being are we meeting the objectives of the class? Are we also meeting certain maybe individual objectives that the students set out to achieve for themselves? And as the instructor, how can we bring those two together? Also, the efficiency really relates to are we working in the most efficient way possible? I think one of the reasons why I'm using for this particular semester Microsoft Teams and OneNote is because there's already an integration there that I think helps both my teaching and the way I deliver the class, as well as how they interact with each other, more efficient. And since, again, students are already enrolled in the university and they have access, they already have an account set up in Office 365. For me, some of the efficiencies there are automatic when considering this type of technology to conduct this class. Okay, now the next aspect here, this can be realized best by offering opportunities for focus on the form, which will attract students' attention to linguistic components as they emerge incidentally in lessons whose main focus is on meaning or communication. I think the key to this particular point is the emergence of incidentally coming across different linguistic elements, even in the sense of form, but having this emerge through the experience. So the idea is to establish or set up the educative experience, have them partake and engage in and participate in the experience, and based on what emerges from those experiences, turn those into teachable moments regarding form and perhaps even meaning. And we haven't talked about pragmatics or the way language is used. In fact, this article does not address at all language use, but I think we can really put together or merge the idea of meaning or semantics and pragmatic meaning and use, bring those together in a good way, and in terms of how we help students really understand what a particular word or phrase means in a particular context. So here, I think, incidentally, we have a lot of opportunities to bring out grammar, not so much predetermined grammatical structures that are just remain the only focus, but be open to other aspects of grammatical structures that can be part of the teaching and learning experience. Okay, the next point, communicative tasks are especially suitable devices for such an approach. So I think this is kind of a no-brainer. Communicative approach, although this is open to interpretation, it can mean a lot of things. I think the overlying or the overarching theme here is that meaning is more important than form, in the sense that there's a particular purpose for the use or the reason for using the language, that they are using the L2 to achieve a goal, to achieve some sort of outcome that helps bring in the use and allows them to kind of see some of the forms and the reasons for using a particular language for a particular purpose. All right, the next point here, more formal pre- and post-task language study may be beneficial. This may make contribution to internalization by leading or maximizing familiarity with formal characteristics during communication. So the degree that I focus in my particular case on the pre and post activities, I think will, again, depend a lot on the understandings and essential questions that are established for that particular week. And this is something I'm going to be reflecting on quite a bit as I begin this course, and continue reflecting on this and sharing some of my thoughts about how this course is being delivered. I think that I will be focusing a lot on how much of the pre and post really fits into the overall experience. Since I'm working on a weekly basis, each of the concepts that we'll be looking at, let me open this up again. Again, each week we'll have a different concept. The first week will be courage, the second week experience, and so on. Power, nature, animals, truth, philosophy, happiness, appreciation, duty, education, fact versus opinion, love, wisdom, equality, and progress. Each of these different concepts are designed to be covered over the course of 1 week. And this particular group meets once a day, Monday through Friday, 1 hour a week. So we've got 5 hours really to look at and experience and develop different tasks that align with these different concepts. Again, we're going to be using Wiggins and McTighe's understanding by design concepts. So we'll be developing understandings, essential questions based on these concepts. That we'll have a language focus. Some of it, again, will emerge as we've been talking about. So there'll be incidental activities and language structures that will emerge from the experience. And so this is going to be our focus. I'll probably also include some sort of grammatical analysis and be sharing that with them in terms of different language that has been used in that particular week. The last thing to mention here, again, I think this is also a no-brainer. Traditional approaches are unproductive and unsuitable, particularly where they require passive formal instruction and practice isolated from communicative work. So again, really the focus here is more on communication, purposeful communication, versus the PPP approach, a more traditional approach that tends to be more focused on the teaching and less on the learning. All right, so again, this is Microsoft Teams, and if you're not familiar with Microsoft Teams, they typically have areas where posts can be made and shared. You can also conduct private chats with each student if need be. Each team will have different files that are being shared. Anytime you post and you attach any type of file to the post, this will also appear here in the files area. And we're going to set up a class note for this particular team. Again, all of the course content will be shared here. And what I particularly like when you set up a Microsoft Teams for the first time and you open up and create a class notebook, it will automatically populate basically 3 different sections. The first being a collaboration space where both students and teachers can edit the space, right? So you can set up sections and pages within each of these areas where collaboration between teacher and student can exist. Underneath content library, this is going to be basically just where I upload content. All students will be able to access this information, but they won't be able to edit it. And then below there, it automatically adds student information. So each student will have, and the way I have it set up, they will have a section called class notes, another section called handouts, another one called homework, and a fourth section called quizzes. Each of these sections, of course, can have multiple pages as necessary, but this is where students can access their own particular work. Only they can see their work that they are sharing, but I'm also, as the instructor, able to go in and view and edit that content as well. So again, this is all by default. This is set up very nicely and quickly, and anytime you add members to a particular team, you can go here and manage a team and add members as necessary. All of this information gets linked to OneNote. So I think this is a good stopping point. Just want to introduce this idea of task-based language teaching or language learning. In my particular case, again, I'm teaching pre-service, in-service teacher trainers. And this particular course, Grammar and Context 2, is for English language learners, typically at an A2 to B1 English level proficiency. And this is what I'm planning on implementing next semester, beginning January. I think the start date is January 27th. and it's a 16-week course. And the idea is to kind of implement test-based learning and teaching, also problem-based learning and teaching, also adapting some aspects of understanding by design, bringing all that together through Office 365, specifically Microsoft Teams and OneNote, bringing that in, and having learners being able to access this information on their phone is very useful, so that they're able to, on the go, be able to interact both in the class and outside of the classroom with the content and activities that we have scheduled for this particular course. So I'm very interested in your thoughts about task-based teaching. If you've had some experiences that you'd like to share, feel free to reach out to me via Twitter. My handle is BNLEEZ. And if you're watching this in Facebook and the Facebook page In the Classroom, feel free to leave a comment about your experiences, some things maybe that I haven't discussed about task-based teaching and learning that need to be discussed. I'm curious of how you think about this particular approach. Also, if you're watching this in YouTube, feel free to leave any comments below. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you find any of this content useful. And this has been In the Classroom. My name is Benjamin Stewart, and this is an effort to make teaching and learning more transparent.